much for tuning into the show. Appreciate it. Make sure that you do me a favor. Hit that rate, subscribe, and share button. Hit that rate, subscribe, and share button. If you're not following me on other platforms, Instagram, Facebook, where else am I at? I got two other channels. I talk about police and political stuff on another channel, Elementary Consulting Services, and talking about esteem, self-confidence, things along those lines. You can check me out on Big L PhD. So if you're not following me, make sure that you do. So I want to have a conversation today that I came across because I came across this young lady here, this Bohemian Gil. I'm sure that probably means something in Bohemian. I'm not an expert on Bohemian culture. And I'm going to ask a simple question as the title of this episode is, do non-Black people get to critique Black people, right? To the pleasures and the intricacies of what is being Black, and how Black are you? Are you Black enough? Are you Black enough, right? So this woman who presents herself as Black, but this Bohemian, I've been to the Bahamas Islands. I haven't been there in a long time, so I'm not exactly sure of the particular history and all that, right? So I think it's fascinating the diasporic experience that we're all experiencing as part of being Black people, right? Some of us are, obviously Jamaican and Bohemian and Costa Rican. Yes, yes. Dominican, Puerto Rican. Brazilian, right? Those from England, those from Canada, and the whole diasporic experience. Whether you were part of the slave trade that went to the east, slave trade that went to the west. Yes, there was a slave trade that went to the east. Yes, there was. Yes. So, but the question is, do all these people get to critique Black American culture? Because Black American culture, I think, period, really kind of dominates the social scene, if you will, right? Our music, the food, everything about American culture, right? Our hip hop artists, our movies, all that kind of stuff, right? Really infects the rest of the world, positively or negatively. And I think that this is a question we have to answer as far as where we want to go with this. So this particular young lady that I saw for the first time, shout out to her, is asking a question. Let's see if I can get the rest of the question in here. I don't even have the rest of this in here. She's asking a question. This is exactly. Let's see. No, that's not it. Yeah. Let's see if I can get this. Let's see. This is exactly what's wrong with Black culture. Now, I'm going to take a little issue with her saying, is it Black culture or is this Black American culture? What exactly, precisely are we talking about? I don't think that there's anything particularly wrong with the Bohemian culture as is, or is it? I'm not an expert on their culture. Is it? I've been to, where else I've been to? St. Lucia. I plan to go to Panama. I plan to go to Grenada. I plan to go to a lot of different places within the coming months. And I do not think that, what am I doing? I do not think that this is a global experience. I don't even know if this is Amber Rose, right? Is she Black? I don't even know if she's Black or not. Anyway, so we're going to ask a question here, and I watched a little bit, about 5 minutes of the video. This is a 31-minute video. I'm not doing a full reaction to that. I'll try to make it, right now we're already, 4 minutes in because I tend to ramble a lot. Right, but we're going to get into her particular video, and let's ask the question. And what intrigued me was the fact that she asked the question whether she had a right to even speak about Black culture, because when I talk about Black, I'm making a difference between diasporic Black experience and her experience, or the Black American experience. And Black American experience, sometimes we think that we're the only ones who have anything to say about anything. Remember that, I think it was Samuel L. Jackson who was talking about the British actors taking over, if I can find that clip, I will, taking over for, enacting in different roles. And remember that the woman who played Harriet, there was controversy over her because how she was kind of seemingly disrespectful about, and she was British, and seemingly disrespectful about the Black American experience and all this kind of stuff, right? So, are you Black enough? And is your geographic location in the world a strike against you when it comes to quote unquote Blackness? So let's listen to what she has to say.
How did we get here? How did we go from this to this? From polished and dignified to sagging pants and bonnets. From songs about upliftment and empowerment to songs about lasciviousness and degeneracy, and this. So
she's asking a good question here. Now that's I don't think that person's Black, but anyway, I don't think the Amber. I don't know. Maybe I'll Google Amber Rose's heritage. So she's talked about the bonnets. She's going to talk about the bonnets again. And there's a video. There was a picture. I'll never forget it, and I didn't screenshot. I think it was I saw it on Facebook, and I can't ever find it again. I would try to find it, and if I don't, then if I don't put it on the screen here, I couldn't find it. It was a picture of two women in first class, two Black women in first class with their bonnets on. They held up. I think it was they're holding up a picture saying, "Who gonna stop us?" Right, and the caption underneath was, "We're on our way to Paris. We're in first class because they're making money and they're doing what they got to do, and they're living their best life." And they had their bonnets on, and who's going to stop them? And this is a question that when I'll raise this again, but I want to bring that up while she mentioned or had the picture of the bonnets.
From spending time with our kids to as the years go by, we're seeing a greater devolution of Black culture, propped up by communities and politicians determined to sit back and watch the destruction of Black communities. One thing is for certain. Times have changed. No longer do our kids have a healthy fear of authority, parents, and the neighborhood. Now it's the parents in the neighborhood that fear the kids. It's the students who now have control of the classroom.
When you teach physics, like Bobby Sinji, you expect students to get frustrated. But never like this.
He got mad and he kind of lost his balance and sort of acted out.
Politicians coddle us and condone our behavior, fearful of criticizing the very constituents who are responsible for their re-election.
I don't appreciate you coming and trying to ambush me here. The vast majority of the young people that came downtown because it was a great weather and an opportunity to enjoy the city. That's absolutely entirely appropriate. There are a few that came with different intentions, and they have and they will be dealt with. But I'm not going to use your language, which I think is wrong, to say that is mayhem.
This week, we're discussing the devolution of Black culture. Let's go. Hello, everyone. My name is Rogan, and this is This Behaving Gal. On my platform, I do social commentary and reaction videos. Whenever I do touchy videos like this, I can expect one of three reactions in the comments section. The first is from individuals who are in full agreement and alignment with what I'm saying. The second is from individuals who are in slight agreement with what I've said, but they usually have a lot of excuses and explanations for why Black people behave the way they do. The third comes from those in absolute denial who demand that I stop speaking because I don't have permission or authority or the right to speak about Black issues in America because I'm not American. For some African Americans, white people and other non-Black people are not permitted to speak on Black issues because if they do, well, they're racist. Then, of course, Black people from African nations or the Caribbean try to weigh in on the conversation, and they are also barred from having these conversations because they're not American. If they speak out of turn, they are considered tethers and coons because they're simply just trying to kiss up to white people. Then finally, there are African Americans who don't like the trajectory we're on, and they're fearful of speaking up because every time they do, they're labeled Uncle Toms and sellouts. Let the record reflect that I am in fact a Black woman, and I have no intention of not speaking on these issues if I think that they're affecting our community. So I say all that to say this. If you are someone who is bothered by someone's difference of opinions and thoughts, and you don't like having your faults called out by someone who is not American, then this is not the video for you. Just log off.
So, I think this is where I kind of stopped before, and we'll get into just a little bit more of this. But I think that her analysis is right. And listen, I recently traveled to a couple of different places, and who knows whether it's real or perceived or not. But I can tell you that there is this idea. The collective image of us all goes by the way the Black American culture goes and the way that we act in public. It influences the way that Bohemians are treated, Brazilians are treated, Canadians are treated, all these different people are treated. And when I walk into a restaurant, when I walk into an airport, when I try to take a taxi, an Uber, or whatever, it matters to me the collective image of us. And I don't want to be treated this way. I don't want to be seen a certain way, and all that. And if you do that, then you're considered weak, or a coon, or a sellout, or you're an Uncle Tom, and all these different types of derogatory language, which Miss Rogan just told us about. And and it affects all of us. So their behavior doesn't affect all of us. So I appreciate her mentioning this. And yeah, she is not American. I guess she's from the Bahamas Islands, but if she's living here, then she has to suffer the consequences and the experiences that we're all dealing with. So let's continue on with her video there.
Black culture as a whole is not degenerate. And for those of you who are watching and you think that Black culture is simply African American culture, you are wrong. Because Black culture also includes Caribbean culture, African culture, South American culture, European culture. There are Black people all over the world, and they have their culture and their mores. So it's not just American culture that we're referring to. So now that that's out of the way, let's get...
Okay, she got me there. Like I said, I didn't watch this before, but so if we're talking, so is it Black people across in Europe who are acting this type of way? Is it Black people in the Caribbean islands who are acting this way? She's definitely got me intrigued about this.
Get into the crux of the video. I remember growing up and seeing Black people taking so much pride in who they were and what they stood for. Just to see Black people in their element when I was growing up was something special. I saw people who were well-read, who were educated, who were sophisticated, who were polished, and honestly, almost regal. But it seems somewhere down the line, our culture just started to become incredibly degenerate. I don't know the nexus of it, but it's just been going downhill for a number of decades. And I know that without serious condemnation and intervention, things are only going to get worse for us. I'm going to start with the low-hanging fruit here, and I'm going to start with how we just stopped caring about our appearance. When you look back at men and women in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s, I think there was just something so elegant about the way that we carried ourselves. Even though a lot of Black people were not rich, they didn't have a substantial means, they didn't have the finest threads. You just look at the way that they dressed, you could tell that there was a great deal of pride in the way they looked. They wanted to show people that, hey, we are elegant people, we are decent people. And at that time, a lot of people viewed Black people as less than their white counterparts. Even when you look in the 70s and you saw those men and those women with their big afros, there was such a huge sense of pride in the way that they looked. And you could tell by the way they walked down the street that they wanted to look fresh, they wanted to look clean. So we've always been interested in looking nice as a people. Today, the landscape is completely unrecognizable. I see Black women going outside with bonnets on. They not just to the food store either. I'm talking about in government buildings and offices. They're wearing these bonnets, pajamas, just attire that really should be...
I don't even know if she noticed this or mentioned this, but I'm going to notice it. Look how overweight these women are as well. And
at that time, a lot of people viewed Black people as less than their white counterparts. Even when you look in the 70s and you saw those men and those women with their big afros, there was such a huge sense of pride in the way that they looked. And you could tell by the way they walked down the street that they wanted to look fresh, they wanted to look clean. So we've always been interested in looking nice as a people. Today, the landscape is completely unrecognizable. I see Black women going outside with bonnets on.
And look how they're dressed. You talk about regal, and look how big they are. All right, I paused it for a second. I could not find that. I could not find that image. I wish I could. It was on. I'm pretty sure it was on Facebook. But yeah, so this is what's going on here. I'm still kind of enthralled and kind of invested here. As this is a phenomenon that's not going on in other places. I'm looking to become a world traveler. I'm looking to explore. So I'll find out. But she's saying this is more than an American thing. That is interesting to me.
Just to the food store either. I'm talking about in government buildings and offices. They're wearing these bonnets, pajamas, just attire that really should be left at home. Men are walking around with sagging pants or wife beaters. It looks like some of them just rolled out of bed. I like to share my stories. I know some of you are like sick of my stories, but I'm an observer. I'm always watching what people are doing, how they're acting in public. And so I like...
First time I'm watching you, so I'm not sick of your stories, so go ahead.
To share these stories just to kind of drive the point home. I remember being in JFK Airport. I was there with family members and we were waiting at the carousel for our luggage to come. And these two Black girls were standing there in pajamas, these huge silk bonnets or satin bonnets on their heads and fuzzy slippers. It looked like they just rolled out of bed and not just came off of a plane. And if that weren't bad enough, as everybody's standing there waiting for their luggage, this girl proceeds to take out a toothbrush and put toothpaste on her toothbrush. And she started brushing her teeth at the carousel. And I looked.
She got the sound effects in the back. That's pretty good, the sound effects. I haven't seen that. People brushing their teeth at the carousel waiting for their luggage. But I've seen them wearing pajamas. I've talked to my daughter about that. In one ear and right out the other, right? The culture, right? They can become a certain age, right? And your parental influence and your fatherly advice. I wouldn't have allowed her to do that if she's 11 or 12, but as a 20-year-old.
Looked over and I saw some black folks just looking, and you can see the condemnation in their eyes. You could see the internal head shake. I looked over, I saw some white people just watching it, just their eyes were just on them. But these are the things that we do, and what always bothers me is that we always have someone who will justify that type of behavior. They think there's nothing wrong with it. And I don't know if these individuals are trolling, or if they are just poorly socialized, or they might be people who do those things so they get upset when someone calls another person out, because that is what they do. I roll my eyes every time I see a young man.
Agreed. They're probably doing it themselves. And I'm going to play a video at the end of this. I don't know how much we're going to watch, but I'm going to play a video at the end of this where a therapist, and if you watch the other video that I did, you know exactly where I'm going, where a therapist co-signed, and I say co-signed because her refusal to condemn is co-signing. Your refusal to speak up is tacit approval of the type of behavior. So I'm going to play that at the end of this. I don't know how far we're going to get, but we're already 18 minutes in. I don't want to make this too long. I don't want this to be longer than her original video.
With the pants hanging down to the point where their underwear and sometimes the butt crack is exposed. And I've walked behind so many men just looking at their butt cracks. It's like, what are you doing? You're outside in public and you're dressed like this. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be fashionable. I know that fashions change over the years, and I'm certainly no prude, but I also don't want to see your butt crack, and I don't want to see your underwear. Every time I see a black man, teenager, young preteen, whomever, or grown man with their pants sagging, I always think about this show that I watched years ago called Lock Up. There was a guy on that program, and I'm sure many of you know him or have seen him at least. His name is Fleece Johnson. He looks like an incarcerated Samuel L. Jackson if you've ever seen him. And I think the Boondocks at one point made fun of him or, spoofed him or something like that. But anyway, he spent 4 decades in prison. I think he may still be in prison. And he talked about these young men that would come into the prison with their pants sagging. And
I think he's out now. I think he got married. I think I saw a clip of him being out and getting married. If I can find it, I'll put that up.
Why he loved when they did that. It gave him and his cohorts a peek at what those young men were working with. And they knew what they wanted just based on what they saw with their pants hanging.
I like booty. They got this thing where they sag their pants past their butt. It's a style. They call it some sort of gangster style. It's sexy to us, right? And see, but they weren't prepared for this, right? So you sag your pants in her, man, somebody be up in your butt. And it's just that simple.
Every time I see a black man with his pants sagging, I immediately think about fleece. Let's talk about our treatment of women, how we treat our women. I am a firm believer that a man is supposed to love and respect a woman, but I see that there are so many black men who just don't know how to do that. They are very disrespectful towards women. I've never seen an Asian man calling his girlfriend or his child's mother or his wife the B word. I've never seen it. A lot of our men will disrespect our women and hurt them emotionally or physically sometimes both. And they see nothing wrong with it. And it's not condemned in the community. A lot of times if a woman is beaten, people say she deserved to get beaten. She looked for that because she did X, Y, Z, or she's annoying or whatever. It's incredibly sad because I look at these women and you can tell that they just don't even know what love is. They don't know how love is supposed to feel or how someone's supposed to act when they love them. You could just see it in their eyes. So last year I was driving on the highway. For those of you who don't know, I live here in Washington, D.C. And I saw something I'd never seen in my entire life. I was driving along the highway and it was kind of like a bridge portion, but there were 5 lanes of traffic. And just driving home from the salon, and all of a sudden I see cars just hitting brakes. Every car just kind of and they're hitting brakes so hard that they're like diverging, like they're just going boom, 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 to left, right, some just veering off. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Because we were like on I can't remember if it was a bridge or an overpass kind of thing. And I was like, I wonder if the bridge collapsed or something for people to just be hitting the brakes like that. I finally saw what was happening. This black guy was beating the crap out of this black woman. I watched him pull her out of the car, and she kept running back to the car. She had a baby in her hand, and he took this woman and he was grabbing her and flinging her into traffic. So that's why the cars, I guess every time she ran off, he would pull her back. So that's why the cars were kind of like going hither, thither, and yon, trying to avoid hitting her. And he beat her so bad on that highway that her top was off. Her breasts were exposed. You could see her underwear because her pants were off, or her skirt, whatever. So she was topless and it was just her underwear. And the baby is crying and somebody else is trying to calm this guy down, and he's just losing it on a highway, broad daylight. I'm calling 911 and the operator is saying, ma'am, everyone is calling us right now. We're sending units. Yes, we know exactly where it is. If this guy was bold enough to do
Her sound effects are killing me. It's pretty good. I like that.
that in broad daylight, on a highway, what is he doing behind closed doors? Researchers say in the US, blacks are the most likely to experience domestic violence, either male to female or female to male, followed by Hispanic people and then white people. And the numbers are still extremely high despite low reporting. Asians, unsurprisingly, are the least likely to experience intimate partner violence. And according to a United Nations report, and they assembled a number of studies, domestic violence against women is most prevalent in Ethiopia, and up to 2/3 of women in certain communities in Nigeria's Lagos state say they are the victims of domestic violence. So this happens in so many different black communities throughout the world. I want to talk about...
Now she's starting to talk about just an overall degeneracy amongst black people. And I'm kind of curious about that. But I wanted to talk about... I thought this was going to be about her talking about Black American culture, but she's trying to paint this picture of overall of black people. And I guess we have an overall pathology that we need to correct. Concerning Black American culture, yes, I see that. So I was kind of doing on these little clips right here, the sexualization of black women. I think that is something that we all need to look at. The violence against black women. I think that in the West, anyway, I should say that West by Europe, America, etc. I would say how we treat women. I think that that's a longer, more complex conversation that we need to have, and we need to look at how feminism has done a lot to that, because a lot of times the ladies are starting the argument, starting the fights, starting to get physical, and men have not been shamed or refused to go along with "you should not hit a woman" type of tactic, right? If she's going to hit me, I'm going to hit her back. And all this. So there's a lot that we need to look at and need to unpack that when it comes to treating ladies. I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in creating violence against women. I think you ought to use your words, separate, do something else. I'm not trying to excuse that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But I think that the bidirectional violence is a problem that we need to take a look at, and we need to look at the genesis of this. And so I think that there's a lot that we need to unpack about this, right? The sexualization, yeah, that's a problem, right? When you take and remove shame, religious affiliations, when you take the moral decay, right, you get this type of behavior, the glorification of criminal behavior that goes a little bit along with that fleece guy we're talking about. There's no snitch culture, which goes on and on. She's talking about just a little bit here, right? She's got the picture of Sexy Red there. I'm not going to play all this. So this is the most replayed and all this. So there's some Byron mother charged with child neglect. Yeah, there's some problems with this, but what I'm starting to see a trend is that she thinks that this is some type of genetic. It almost seems. I'm not saying that she's saying this. It almost seems like there's some type of she's referring to the black culture, this genetic type of thing. Now, black culture is the elimination of the original culture, and it is a superimposed culture. It is a Frankenstein culture, to quote the late great Dr. Amos Wilson. Right, we have been put together this hodgepodge of cultures. Right, the food is different from where we originally came from. The religion is different. Our socialization is different. Our music is different. We have had music pushed on us in all these different places. Ethiopia has, as she mentioned. No, she didn't mention this, but she mentioned Ethiopia as being someplace for domestic violence, has never been colonized, so they can't blame it on that. So what are the other places, whether you're a colonized country or you're the victim of slave diaspora, you can't blame it on this. So I understand her critique concerning Western nations, because we're struggling as an infantile nation, essentially, to try to figure out who we are. Caribbean culture had to cast off their colonial upbringings, if you will, and then try to define and redefine themselves. Black American culture has done the same thing. We've gone through many iterations, still trying to figure out who and what we are. Are we American? Are we still African American? Do we have any African roots? If you come over here from the Bahamas or from Jamaica or from any other place, are you Black? Are you Afro-Caribbean? All that we're trying to, if you Afro-Latina, Afro-Latino, we're still trying to figure out all this type of stuff out. And some people don't want to be Black, and some people from the Dominican islands don't want to be Black. They don't want to claim any type of African heritage, despite the fact that we know that this is true. If you're a Dominican, your cousins across the border in Haiti, right? Haiti. So we got to take a look at all this type of stuff, right? So I can get that the African diasporic experience, concerning European, Western nations has been a problem, but the African nations who have been suffered from colonialism and since suffered this sense of identity has a certain problem to it. So I think that her analysis, and I'm not watching the whole thing here, needs to be a little bit more nuanced. I don't appreciate the fact that she's seemingly attacking all these other places. I have not watched the full video. I don't want to make this any longer than hers. But my question is, who has the right, and this is why I originally put the video on, who has the right to criticize Black American culture? And she's saying this about Black culture, and that would be seeming to be coonish, because that would be the same argument that white supremacists say, that no matter where you go, Black people are just degenerate and all that kind of stuff. And I don't believe that at all, right? I think that we collectively have and still suffer from colonialistic mindsets, and people who are interfering with African politics, still invested in their civil war, still invested in their infrastructure, their finances, their economic progress. And so all of that creates these different problems that we see along the way. So we have to be honest about where this comes from. It's not that we are genetically inferior to anyone else. So we have to take a look at all that. So I'm going to leave it off right there, and I'm going to end this off by playing a clip from the video that I had, where this therapist, as I related in the other video, is supposed to be dedicated to changing the hearts, changing the minds, and ultimately changing the behaviors. And she's a licensed, she's a master MSW, I think of the Masters of Social Work, is supposed to be invested in changing this behavior. And that woman, who is a therapist, had no smoke for any of these different types of behaviors that this Miss Logan, this Bohemian gal, has put up. And I have a problem with that, because the very people who ought to be seeking for change, adjusting for change, mentioning change, making change, leading the way towards change, doesn't have any smoke for any of these type of behaviors. So let's get into, play the video so you can see exactly what my problem is and was with this young lady.
So let me tell you what I don't like about hood Black people.
She's telling us what she thinks about hood Black people and what she doesn't like about them.
Okay, got it? All right, good.
I appreciate that she has smoked for this type of behavior. I have smoked for many of the things that she has mentioned. We got to get back to some type of collective morality, collective ethics, collective where we know what it's like to be a Black person living in America, Black person living in Brazil, Black person living in the Caribbean. We have this collective sense of pride in the color of our skin and where we have come from and the things that we have suffered from almost seemingly all over the continents on the planet, and what we're going to do about that in order to have a collective positive self-image, and we ought to address that. So I'm going to lead this off. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Hit me up in the comment section. Much love and peace, everyone.